Hello and welcome to IvyLearn, Navigating the Global Interface. This is a 60-minute hands-on exploration of navigating the global interface. We'll learn how to identify the three sections of the interface, and also we'll explore the global navigation menu. I just want to let you know that the statewide training resources that we're providing for you are created for you to be attended in a certain order. So I know many of you are very excited and anxious to get in and start using the IvyLearn system, and we're going to walk you through that step by step. So hopefully with your help of your regional friends, you'll be able to join us each week for step-by-step instructions on how to get you prepared. So our first wave of training is really going to be based on the buttonology, how to navigate the system, how to locate areas, how to use those the pieces of technology that are available to you in the IvyLearn platform. Then we're going to talk about transitioning your courses, and then eventually we're going to talk about workflows and the best teaching strategies and how to use IvyLearn. So just a kind of global overview of our statewide training plan. And I hope you'll be able to continue to join us for each one of those. So today we're going to talk about, again, how to navigate the global interface. And we're also going to identify those buttons located on the global navigation menu. But first, let's learn how to log in. I know several of you indicated during the poll that you haven't logged in yet to IvyLearn. So to do so, you go to ivylearn.ivytech.edu. That's ivylearn.ivytech.edu. You'll be prompted to enter a username and password. You're going to use the same credentials that you use when you log into MyIvy, formerly known as Campus Connect. Don't forget, when you enter in your username, that is your entire IvyTech email account. So jdoe@ivytech.edu. Enter in your password and then click Sign In. By default, IvyLearn will open up to the dashboard page. Let's go ahead and jump right in here and see what that looks like. And here we are. So the IvyLearn global navigation interface is divided into three major sections. So first, over here on the left-hand side, this is the global navigation menu. Here in the center, this is called your content area, and by default that opens up to the dashboard. And the dashboard gives you easy access to the courses that you're taking and the courses that you're teaching. The third component to the navigation is over here on the right-hand side, and this is called the sidebar. And the sidebar can contain different types of information just depending on where you are in the system. So in this particular case, when we open up to the dashboard, over here on the right-hand side, this kind of organizes our material. So the first thing it's going to outline for us are things to do. This is the same view for both faculty and students. So you'll notice I'm a student in DBMS 120, and I have a homework assignment that's due. And it tells me how many points it's worth and the due date. As I continue to scroll down through my to-do list, you'll see there's other information here that I can use. It also gives me access to my calendar, and it also talks about coming up events. I can also see recent feedback from my teacher, and that view, of course, depends on your user role. So if you're a faculty or student, you might see something different here under recent feedback. So this is the sidebar. And again, in the dashboard view, this kind of organizes our what we need to know right now. Now, since I've already read my message that I have a homework assignment, I can actually click this little X, and I can delete that announcement from my view. It gives me a little bit more space, and you'll see I still have 6 more to-do items, so I can expand that menu and I can see what else I have to do. Just requires me to scroll just a little bit more. Okay. So again, this is our sidebar. This content area in the middle, as I said before, it opens up to our dashboard. in the dashboard, we have a series of course cards. That's what these are called. Okay? This is for every course that you're teaching or courses that you're taking as a student, is a list here in the middle. And I see that Deborah actually has a really good question. How is the to-do list populated? It is driven by the calendar. So if you have an assignment due date, it prioritizes it in chronological order. Thanks, Deb. That's a great question. Okay. So these course cards, they have color blocks. And these color blocks correspond to the calendar system. Okay, so it becomes very important. The thing to remember about these color blocks is that this is unique to you and your view only. So if your favorite color is teal blue, for example, I can customize my look to see this color. The students will randomly be assigned a different color, and they can actually customize their course color codes as well. Now, why is that? If every instructor that the student might have loves the color orange, and all of their courses are orange, when they go into the course calendar, it would be very hard to distinguish from one course to the other. Okay, so the color codes correspond with the course calendar. And you'll notice the course calendar is one of our global navigation menus on the left-hand side of the page. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Now, I can customize the color in my color block by clicking this little pencil. If you see the pencil throughout the IvyLearn platform, you know that this means it can be edited. I can now select a color of my choice. I just click on it and click Apply. And now I have a new color block for my thing. When I click on that pencil button as well, you notice that I can actually nickname my course. So for those of you who are teaching in a traditional classroom experience, for example, or you're teaching in multi-dimensions, so if you're teaching online and hybrid or face-to-face, you can actually nickname your course. And I can put like my Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, and I can give it a nickname to help me organize my courses in a way that's logical to me. When I click Apply, you'll see that the course name up here at the top has been changed to my nickname. So that's kind of a fun and new way that we can organize ourselves in the dashboard view. The dashboard has a series of icons that can appear across the bottom of the course card. So you'll notice here there are several different icons. This area can have up to 4 different icons. Okay? You can have an announcement, discussions, a course assignment, or a file that's been posted. This all has to do with the content in the actual course. If you see the little number beside one of these icons, you know, for example, there have been 2 new announcements added to this particular organization that I'm a part of. And you'll see there have been 2 posts in the discussion board. So this kind of gives you a quick glance on what's been added and what's new in the course. Okay? So there are 4 possible icons that can appear. You notice in some of my other courses, whoops, happy clicking there. Let's go back for just a second. You'll notice that in this particular course, I only have an announcement. These icons will only appear if there's actually content for those particular items in the course. All right, so far what we've identified is that by default, IvyLearn opens up to this dashboard page. To navigate the global navigation interface, there are 3 major components: the global navigation menu, the content area, and then our sidebar, and in this particular view, shows us the to-do list. Okay. So let's talk about this global navigation menu over here on the side. These are your most frequently used global tools. So this is an overview of all the courses that you're involved with at one particular glance. So since we've been talking about these color blocks and the correspondence with the calendar, let's jump into the calendar and show you what that looks like. I select the course calendar icon off the global menu, And you'll now see the course is now, or excuse me, this view is still in 3 components. The toolbar is still available. My content area contains the majority of my view of the calendar. And the sidebar now has a list of my calendars and a little mini view of the calendar that allows me to switch easily from month to month. Okay. Across the top, there's a toolbar that allows us to view this calendar by week, month, agenda, scheduler, and of course the plus sign means how we add a new event. In the course calendar, I can show up to 10 courses in my global view at one time. I do that by simply clicking on my color blocks. Okay. If you have more than 10 courses that you're enrolled in, you can simply click the color block to turn off a particular course and then add a different one. Okay? Just simply by clicking those color blocks. And remember, these color blocks are unique to you and they're unique to your students. Each color is reserved to accessibility standards, so there's no crazy colors that are not compatible. So if you recognize here, my demo, my course template is this little blue color. If I go back to my dashboard, you'll see that it actually corresponds here. And I have a picture underlay here. So the technical color that I've selected is this blue color. Okay. All right, so back to the calendar. All right, so I can see my week view, my month view, and you'll see how all the colors are color coordinated with my color blocks for each individual class. Then I can also look at the agenda view. And the agenda view is a chronological order of all the assignments that I have in all of my courses, or all the courses that I have selected on my calendar view. So this is just another view on how I can see my calendar item. Okay. The scheduler allows me to create appointment groups. So if I'm going to do an office hours, for example, with a group of students, I can actually create an appointment group. So one of the groups that I've already created is called Research Topics, and this is for my demo course template. This becomes underlined. I can actually go back into my course from this link right here. So it actually takes me into the course. Next week, we learn how to navigate the course, so don't get too excited yet. That's for next week. But let's go back into the scheduler view. Okay. So I am going to create an appointment group. I give the appointment group a name. Now, when you're creating assignments, you can actually create this as a placeholder, or you can actually create this right now as something that we're going to do immediately. So I'm going to call this my midterm review. I'm going to give it a location. I can say my office. I can give, if I'm using GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, I can give my webinar location here. I can actually select the calendar that this applies to. So I can select more than one. So if I'm teaching multiple sections of underwater basket weaving, for example, I can select all those sections, and I can actually do a cross-section of those student study hours, or I can select just one individual course. So I'm going to select my demo course, and you click Done. I can have students sign up in groups, or I can randomly assign them. So I'm going to randomly assign my students. That way everybody has a partner. I give it a due date. So I'm going to be available, we'll say for my midterm, I'm going to be available March 8th from 9 a.m. until noon for this particular group. And then I might be available on a different date, maybe on the 9th from 12 to 2. You just place your cursor in there and you type in the number. Oops, that's not right. Helps if you can type. Okay. Does not like that. Okay, here we go. Apparently, doesn't like this at all. Let's delete that one. You're always one click away from success, my friends. Okay, so you enter in your times. And then you can divide these slots into 30-minute time frames, 15-minute time frames, 5-minute time frames. So you can actually schedule your time. And students would sign up for these particular times, or you can actually randomly assign them to different people. So we're going to say we're going to have 5-minute meetings. And I can limit the time slot to specific students. I can allow students to see who has signed up for those blocks, and I can also limit the participation. I have an area here where I can set up the details. And then I click Save and Publish. And anytime I save and publish, this means it makes it available to students to sign up for, and it also adds it to the calendar. If I simply click Save, that means it's a placeholder on my calendar, so if I'm working ahead, I'm setting my dates for the entire semester. It's not necessarily published to students, but I know I want to make that an activity. And Patty, you're absolutely right. I was using a date that had already passed, so it's not going to let me schedule that. Now, the fun thing about when I go into my agenda or my monthly calendar, here we go. So let's go into the month view. I can actually also add an event to my calendar, and I can also create an assignment from my calendar. So we just set up a student appointment, so we made our office hours available. And again, if I just publish that and save it, that's allowing students to register. If I just want to put that as, if I'm building out my calendar for the semester, I can actually just put it as a save, and it's a placeholder on my calendar. It doesn't become viewable to students until it's published. So let's see what it looks like to add an event. So create a new event. You just click the plus sign. And you notice I could create an event or an assignment. So for our purposes, let's go ahead and I'm going to say this is my personal calendar. So I'm in my personal calendar. For the pull-down menu, I can select any of my courses. But for my purposes, this is my personal calendar, and I'm going to say that on Thursday, the 23rd, I need to make sure that I have my function junction training materials ready. Okay. I don't necessarily have to give it a location because I know where I'm going to be, but I might want to give it a time frame. Okay. And under more options, I can actually give myself some details. Okay, so update webinar information, add handouts, okay, so I've made a note to myself in my editor. And when I scroll down, I just need to create the event. And this will add the event successfully to my calendar. And you'll see now that on February 23rd, I just added my function junction training. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm busy all day Thursday. I didn't mean to add that to Thursday. I can just simply place my cursor and drag and drop to a different date and time. So I now have it on Wednesday the 22nd, and I can just drag that to any place I want it to go. And it automatically changes that notification. If I had, this was a student event, and I had someone signed up, like with my scheduler event, when I scheduled those office hours and I changed those dates, a notification would be sent out to my students. Okay. So that's pretty cool. Now, creating an assignment. So in IvyLearn, we have different ways of creating content. And one of those ways is we can do this from a global format, or we can actually go into a course and create the content there. So for our purposes here, we're going to go ahead and click this little Create New Event. And I click Assignment. I give the assignment a name. I give it a due date. I select the course that I want it to be in. I can click on Assignments. And this is allow it to be published or not published, and that means it makes it available to students. I can click More Options. And this takes me actually into the course where I can give directions. Okay, so remember, we can actually create assignments using the global menu, or we can actually go into a course. I'm going to give it points. I'm going to give an assignment group. I'm just going to leave it in assignments. I can display the grade as points. I can tell it if I want this to count towards the final grade, and I do. And here I can tell it what kind of submission types I'll accept. So I can say I can want text, students can submit a URL, they can send me a media recording, or they can upload a file. I can tell if this is a group assignment. I can say if I want to require peer reviews. So if for our English 111 folks who do a lot of peer reviews, this is how you would select to make it a peer review assignment. I can allow a moderator to review those grades before submission. I can assign this to a specific student or a specific group or to everyone. I can set my due date, and I can say when this assignment is available. So if I'm going to have this available on the due date of 28th, I'm going to make this assignment available on Monday the 20th, probably even sooner than that, and I'm going to make it available through the 28th. And I click Done. Oops. And then I add my until date. And then I add that to my calendar, or add that information. I can assign it to a specific course, again, or I can assign it to a specific student. And then again, if I want to make this available for my students to see, I can click Save and Publish. If I just click Save, it's a placeholder. So again, if I'm building out my course content and I want to build an assignment, I know this is going to be due, but I'm not ready for my students to see it yet on their calendar once they get registered, then I can just save it. But if I click Save and Publish, oops, and you'll see it's loading, and now I've just added that assignment right here to my calendar, and it's also available in the course. So pretty cool stuff. Okay. All right. Once the deadline is passed, you'll see this mark through that this has been submitted and it's been completed, or the deadline has passed. Okay, so pretty cool. So again, by default, we open up into the dashboard. We have our global navigation menu. We have our content area. We have our sidebar, with, in this case, the to-do area. These color blocks correspond to our course calendar. And those course calendars have color blocks, and here we can see up to 10 calendars at a time. We can add events, or we can add assignments. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about our courses. So let's see, we can see it in the dashboard. Now, every single person should currently have a sandbox on their dashboard. So this is, it should say sandbox shell 4 and then your name, okay? This is yours to use, to practice, to blow up, to customize, to work with in a million different ways. You can always delete it and reset it. This is for your training purposes. Go in there, try things, and experiment, okay? If for some reason you don't see your course, or you see it once and then it disappears, you can click on this courses button on our dashboard, or excuse me, on our global navigation menu. So when I click courses, if I click all courses, I see a complete list of all the courses that I'm enrolled in. It shows if I'm a teacher or a student in that course. And published means that it's available for students. So this is a new vocabulary term, published. Published means available in IvyLearn language. So these little stars, if I click on them, I can make things disappear from my dashboard. Okay, so I've deselected those. When I go back to my dashboard now, you'll see that my view still has them. Let me go back into courses. I love when technology works. Okay. Okay, but when I click them, it could be I hadn't cleared my cache. But this is how you select and deselect what you're going to see on your dashboard. Andaz has the question, is there a maximum amount of course cards you can see in the dashboard? And yes, the answer is 20. It'll organize it first by the courses that you're teaching, and then the courses that you're enrolled in as a student. Using that courses list can help you navigate and identify what courses you want to see in your dashboard view. Okay. The next area on the menu is called Groups. Groups really allows you to organize your students. Group work in the past in our former LMS has been very difficult to set up and use. In Groups, it's fairly easy in the IvyLearn platform. You will not see necessarily the groups icon until you have students enrolled in your class. Okay, to actually set up a group, you do that in your course. You'll see that I'm part of a group. When I click on that, it takes me into my, my group within my course, or the organization in this particular course. So this is a global view, when you click on groups, of all the groups that you are enrolled in. When we get into our course navigation next week, we'll talk a little bit more about groups. The next area on your global menu is called your inbox. Now, the inbox is a little bit different. The inbox you think of is email, but in IvyLearn, this is called conversations. So a new IvyLearn term for you is called conversations. This replaces what we formerly known as messages in Blackboard. And the one thing that I truly really like about our IvyLearn platform is this option of messages or conversations. So we have one point of origin. This allows me to communicate with any student that I interact with, or any peer that I interact with in any of my courses or organizations that I'm enrolled in. Okay? This is also available to students. You'll see here there's a series of conversations that I've been involved with through my courses that I'm enrolled in, either as a student or a faculty member. The black dots on the left-hand side indicate that I have not read those yet or participated, and you'll see that right over here there's a little block with a number in it. This means there's been 2 responses, and this is a really great conversation. There's 16 messages going on in this particular area. This indicates new messages. Okay. All right. The nice part about this is when I create a message, we have a notification system in IvyLearn that allows you as the faculty member or the students to receive that information in several different ways. And we'll talk about notifications in just a moment. But what this allows you to do is if I prefer to get communication through text message, I can select to be notified that there is a new announcement or a new message for me through my text messaging. I can select it to be notified through email. I can select for it to be notified through my personal email account. So there's multiple ways that I can set up not only what I want to be notified about, but where I want to be notified. So this gives us one point of communication, one point of origin to send out messages and to send out communication, but multiple ways to receive that communication, both as a faculty member and as a student. So pretty powerful and really, really simple to use. So you'll notice here I can also filter out my groups or my inbox information. I can do it by all courses, and I could just see I only want to see conversations that take place in my super user group. Okay. I can see all courses. I can select it by course, organizations. Concluded means that the course is over. Concluded means it's over. It's not available to students any longer. So that's what that concluded vocabulary word means. I can also look by groups. Any communication that I've communicated with my super user group. Okay. From the inbox, I can see unread messages. I can star messages that are important to me. I can look in my sent box. I can archive messages for future reference, and I can also see my submission comments. So there's ways to filter. Over here on the right-hand side, this allows me to compose a new message. Okay. I can also, for example, if I select this conversation, this allows me to reply back to a specific information. I can also reply to everyone in the conversation. I can download or archive this conversation if I need to. I can also delete that message. And then I also have more options, such as mark as unread or forward this to a different person. So to compose a message, I click this little icon. Again, here's this same pencil icon. It means you can edit, or in this case, compose. I can select a course. So I'm going to say I want to go communicate with my demo course. I can also click this little icon. This is the people icon. So I can select users just from this particular course. And I can look at my student groups. So I've already set up a research project group. There are 3 people. I can select all 3 of these people to communicate with, or I can select Mickey Mouse here. Okay. I can also send an individual message to everyone. So for example, if I have students, 3 or 4 students who have not logged into the class yet or are missing an assignment, I can write one message and then I can select send an individual message to each recipient. So I'm writing the message one time and I can select it to go out to each person individually for confidentiality purposes. So I simply write my message. Okay, and then I can simply click send. I can also, down here in this right-hand corner, I can actually attach a document. So if I wanted to tell Mickey through the handout what his responsibilities are as a group leader, I could apply that here. And I can also, and this is kind of fun and easy to use, I can also record an audio or video message for Mickey. So when I click on the video film strip, I get prompted to allow my camera and my webcam to work. I click Allow. To start recording, I just click my red button. Hi, Mickey. I'm so glad that you're going to be joining us as a group leader. Please sign up for one of my office times to discuss what those expectations are. Have a great day. Okay, and then I can just save that message. Okay, and then I click Send. So now I can actually send feedback to my student using this media tool. This media tool does appear in several different locations, including your grading feedback, so kind of an exciting preview of what you can do when you're communicating with your students. Just remember that we do have very strict practices or encouraging practices on how we communicate with students, so we want to be try to include a transcript with any video that we give to our students just to make sure that they can get the information that they need. Does this feature replace announcements? No, announcements are still available in the courses. That's a great question. This is just more of a messaging tool. Melinda, you asked a great question. If it sends out as a text, will the student see our cell phone number? Only if you allow that. When you set up your preferences under the account settings, you can allow your text or your cell phone information to be published. It's entirely up to you. And I will show you in just a few minutes on how to set up those preferences. And Jeffrey, I'm sorry, I know you're asking me how do you do all of that, but I just caught the question. So can you just send me a quick little information in the question box on what you would like me to demonstrate again, and I'd be glad to. Okay. Right now what we're talking about is our inbox. So we access the inbox on our global menu. When I click that, you'll notice that it also has this little 5. This means I have 5 messages that I have not read and that are new. On the left-hand side of this page, or in the content area, this is all the discussions and conversations that I'm enrolled in. The black dots indicate that I've not read these particular announcements or these particular messages, and that in this conversation there are 16 messages. Okay. I can use my filter boxes by course or by group. I can also filter my messages by messages that I've received or sent, archived, or have not read. To send a message, again, I'm going to use this little icon at the very top of the page, compose a new message. I can select a course. I think I only have students in my demo course. I click the people box, the little people icon. Okay, I can select a different student. I give it a subject, just like I would any type of message. I type the message. I can add a file using the attachment icon, or I can add a video message using the video film strip. Once I've made those additions, I simply click Send, and I will have a record of that in my sent message box. Okay, so that is how our inbox works. And again, our inbox is our messaging tool. So instead of using message, it's now called conversations, our conversation box. We have one point of communication, and then it can be received in multiple ways. So let's look at what those notifications look like? So up here under our account, okay, so right here under account, it's on our global navigation menu. When I click account, I have several options. This is also how I log out of IvyLearn. So here's my log out button. You'll notice my name here is Catherine Long. This is my official name, legal name, according to my Ivy Tech employment record. So this is what you'll see. This is in Banner, so this is how it will appear in IvyLearn. Okay, so I can set up my profile, and to set up my profile, I click Profile. And we just did this in our Function Junction webinar last Friday. To edit the page, to set up your contact, your biography, and links to particular web pages, you click the Edit button over on the left-hand side, and you click Edit Profile. Again, you're just going to type into the text boxes, make your links and information, and click Save Profile. So just remember, just like in our former LMS, anytime you add content, you always had it to submit, and in this case, we always save the content. To change your picture, again, when I place my cursor over that picture, this little edit box shows up. I click that edit, and I can upload a picture from my files, or I can take a picture from my webcam. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we covered that in one of our former webinars, but I will tell you on the GoToWebinar control panel, under Handouts, I have given you 2 handouts today. The first one is our IvyLearn Function Junction Episode 1. That was a former webinar where we learned how to log into IvyLearn, how to set up our profile, and how to basically navigate some of the interface. Okay. The second document is called the IvyLearn Navigating the Global Interface, and this has a lot of links to very specific instructions on what we're going through today. So if you're not catching everything right now, you're welcome to join me for another version of this. I'm going to do this 2 more times this week, and you're welcome to sign up for another webinar, or you can use the handout that I provided for you and really get some hands-on instruction on how to navigate and how to use these tools that we're discussing today. Okay? All right, so you also know in my profile, under my account settings, I have this settings button. And before I can set up my notifications, which this is where we can have the students text us if they want to, we have to set up our settings. So when I click Settings, this whole area up here at the top front side gives you this information, your full name and your display name and your sortable name. That's all Banner. So whatever's in Banner, that's how it will display here. Now, what's kind of cool about this is that you can change your time zone. So for those of you in the upper northern and southern parts of the state, and you're in a different time zone, you can actually set up your personal time zone. Okay. You'll notice over here under Ways to Contact, this is where I can add an additional email address, and I can also set up my contact method. So to make additions or changes to my settings, I have to click the Edit Settings button. Makes sense, right? Okay. So let's click Edit Settings. And you'll now notice that I can actually change my language to a different language if you want to. This changes all of the headers, the Canvas or IvyLearn letters. So if you want to be brave, here we'll click French real quick and update settings. And you see now that all of my IvyLearn generated information is now in French. Okay, so I'm not that fluent. So let's make sure that I'm going to go back in here and modify or edit my content. I don't recommend you changing this to Japanese or something you've never spoken before, because that could be a little bit challenged to get it set back. So we're going to go select English again. And let's go ahead and update that. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to click Edit Settings again. And from the time zone, you can now select where you are located. Okay, so there's Indiana East and then Eastern Time. Central Time. Okay, so select the time zone that is best for you. Okay. If you are Google Drive, if you use Skype, if you want to use your Twitter account, if you want to add your LinkedIn profile to your biography and to your settings page, you're absolutely welcome to do that. Down here at the bottom of the page, there is this thing called high contrast. And when you engage the high contrast, what this does is it makes it very accessible and improves some visibility in the course. When you do that high contrast, just know that you lose these themes. So that, for example, the Ivy Tech logo up here at the top left-hand side, that disappears and this menu just turns into black and white. So that's your personal preference that you can select from. Let's go ahead and scroll back up here again. And remember, this is still kind of our sidebar area, so this is how we make the changes. I can click Add Email Address. Okay. And I can register my email. I can also set up my cell phone number, and I can set up that information here. Okay, so when I do that, it's going to send, to make sure that it's actually legitimately my email, it's going to send an email to my account for me to confirm that this is actually me. Okay, but you'll see that that's now been added to my profile page. And I can delete that automatically because there's a little garbage can located to the right. So this is how I set up my username, or not my username, excuse me, but my preferences, my Google address if I want it to communicate with me that way. If I want to set up my text messaging, this is how I set it up that way. So this is the information that you are publishing out to the IvyLearn community. Okay, so all of your students, other faculty can gain this information. Okay, and see this. Once you've made your preferences known, you of course again want to make sure that you've saved those changes. Okay, so we want to update our settings. Now here comes the fun part. Okay, so we know that we have this inbox area where we use messages. We have this new where we prefer, our ways to be communicated with. And now we can set up our notifications. And this is how we are notified, either as a faculty member or as a student, on what we want to be notified about and how we want to be notified. So again, we're under Account, and we're under Notifications. Okay. We have the icon or the summary of what each of these means. So the check mark, notify me right now. This is must-have information. I need to know this information right now. You can send a daily summary. So I only want to have this type of information known to me once a day. I can also do a weekly summary. So I don't want to get daily messages. I want to get a summary of this. And then I have a do not send me anything. Okay, and then I can also, since I've added a second email address, and if I had set up my my mobile phone here, I would have a third column. And I need to set this preference for each one of these items, okay, and how I want to be communicated with each communication method. Okay, so this will take a little time. I warn you, by default, everything is turned on. So right now, I've modified a couple of these already. But when you first get in and set your preferences and your notifications, you will get everything in every method. So every time a due date is added or changed, you would get notified right away with a daily summary and a weekly summary, and it would go to your email address, your Ivy email address, your Google email address, and your text messages. So think carefully how you want to be notified. What this really does is it allows students to stay engaged. And just as a side note, my son is a Canvas user at at college. He's a student athlete, and several of his friends and I were talking just this past weekend about their use of Canvas. They love it. They get notified through their cell phones every day about new assignments and reminders. They like that to-do list, and it helps them stay organized and on track with what they're doing in school. So from a student perspective on what I've read and also what I've talked to these students about, they really enjoy this notification. So we can be notified, again, about all the course activities, announcements. We can be notified if any discussions have been added, discussion posts. This is our conversations, and remember, conversations are now what we formerly called messages. If a student has set up for my scheduled office hours, if I have any updates to my groups, if the administrator has sent any notifications out, and if I'm participating in the conferences. So this is my notification preferences. Okay. So this is account. Again, you want to make sure that you set up your profile and your settings, especially your settings, before you set up your notifications. Okay, so that's the order for that. Okay, just a couple more things to show you here on our global interface. So if we go down here to the left-hand side of the page, again, we've already talked about our inbox. I want to make sure, too, that you know right here, we also have a help button built in. So when I click on the help button, it opens up where I can actually call the help desk, so our 188 Ivy line. There's a contact information here. I can submit an Ivy Tech help desk if something is going wrong. I can access My Ivy, and remember that's formerly known as Campus Connect. I can search the Canvas guides, and I can also join the Canvas community. The Canvas guides are very, very helpful and very useful. The nice thing about this in our IvyLearn environment is that the materials that Canvas has created apply to 99% of what we do. Unlike a former LMS platform, these really, the pictures, the how-to points, the step-by-step instructions apply to our environment. So it's very, very helpful. I noticed that in the question box, Patty mentions a very important question here, that she does not have the groups button. And you won't. This groups icon will not show up until you actually have students enrolled in your classes. So that's a good question. Eventually, your groups button will appear when you have students enrolled in your courses. Good question. Okay. The other thing on the global navigational toolbar that you may or may not have at this point in time is called the Commons. And the Commons is a learning repository of information. So when I click on the Commons, these are courses, modules, quizzes, discussions about a million different topics that the Canvas community has created that you can use in your courses. Okay, so if you'll notice here, there are courses, modules, assignments, quizzes, discussions, pages, documents, videos, audio, and images. So all kinds of things that you can choose from. You can do a random search. You can do a search by type. So what kind do you want to look at? You can do it by grade level. So I only want things for my undergraduate level. And you can also see the most popular, the highest rated information. So let's see, let's just go ahead and look up film history. So I have something here called film genres, and this is some supplemental materials that I can pull into my course to use in a future time. Okay. All right, so that's the Canvas Commons, and we'll do a little bit more about the Canvas Commons when we get into how to transition our courses. Okay. All right. So I know that's a lot of information. And what we've learned how to do today is log in. So we're going to log into ivylearn.ivytech.edu. We know now that the global interface is kind of blocked into 3 different components: the global navigation menu, which takes you from one frequently used content area to the other. We know by default that it opens up to the dashboard area. And in the second component of the interface is this activity area. And in this example is the dashboard. And we also know over here on the right-hand side, this is our sidebar, which contains information about the content area. And in this particular example, our to-do list. I want to go ahead and show you, Jeff has a great question. Oh, it seems a little overwhelming for students. We do have materials for students, and they will be notified, so don't completely panic. But for example, let me show you what a completed course looks like. So when you log in, this is actually a completed course. And I'm going to go into my settings really quickly, and I want to show you the student view. Student view, sorry. Okay. So this is what the students see. There's announcements at the top of the page. There's the course menu located on the left. There's still their sidebar. This is called the course sidebar. And it identifies their to-do list, things that they have to do in this individual course. Okay. You'll see the course banner. And then each module is a link. Okay, so just like we did in our former LMS platform, when you click on those links, you're still going to have an overview of the session, and you just simply move from one content slide to the other. Here are our readings. So we're still keeping the quality matters standards for the students, and it's kind of, we're keeping that easy navigation for the students in mind. Okay. Here's what their first assignment is, to do a discussion board. Okay, I can actually reply right here instead of going to the discussion area. So it's built right in. It's very user-friendly and student-oriented. From a faculty's perspective, you should know, see here this pink notification down at the bottom. This lets me know that I'm actually in the student view, so I'm getting to see what the student sees. And I would just make a note to yourself that when you are creating content for the first time and you're teaching in the IvyLearn environment, you want to make sure that you check your student preview pretty frequently, just to make sure that you're remembering to publish or make content available. And we'll talk a little bit about that more when we talk about navigating the course interface next week. So that's kind of a preview of what a completed course looks like. Okay. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I truly appreciate it. Located again on your GoToWebinar are handouts. We have the handout from last Friday's IvyLearn Function Junction, which tells you how to log in, how to set up your profile, and how to get a general navigation of the global interface. The second handout, the IvyLearn Navigation Global Interface, has a lot of links to specific instructions on how to maneuver and manipulate the content in our IvyLearn platform. Okay, so just remember that those links are available to you. A lot of that information comes from the Canvas guides, but everything we talked about today is there for your reference in that handout. I want to thank Dr. Kara Monroe for facilitating the question box today, and I want to thank you for attending. Okay, so hopefully you can see my control panel at this point. If you go down here to where it says handouts, okay, if it's to see the